to insert an insert onto a track, what I'm going to do is I click on one of these slots here. Now, the slot that you click on matters because there's an order to these inserts right here. So if I click on the first one, it's going to go first. If I click on the second one, it's going to go second after the first one. If I click on the third one, it's going to go third after the first and second ones. Now, by default, you should have 5 right here, but you can actually get access to more of them by going down to the bottom down here with this little area. And you can see you've got inserts A through E or F through J, and also the same for sends as well. So if I click on these, I can have more of these here at the same time. This is a little bit different from how Logic or Ableton Live work. With Logic and Ableton Live, you just keep dragging them in. It just keeps making more slots. With Pro Tools, it actually allows you to divide them up into sections. So if you don't need to use a whole bunch of them, you're not going to see a whole bunch of them in there. I actually prefer the way that Ableton Live does this or Logic does it. I don't love the way that Pro Tools does it, but it's just how it works, so you just have to kind of get used to it. So in here, I've got my inserts A through E, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here for all my different tracks. So let's say, for example, that I've got my vocal here, and let's use an insert that's actually really, really easy to hear. I'm going to go ahead and mute my drums so we don't hear the drums. Start this over here.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay, cool. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and loop this. Go ahead and loop you. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Here's this. Move the beginning over like this.
1.
Actually, I'll start right here, as I've been doing.
1, 2, 3,
okay.
4.
So if I put, let me just grab this one here, move it over as well. There we go.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So if I put a plugin on here, it's going to go through that plugin. It's going to go through the plugin, this insert here. So if I put one on here, so let's go down here and go to, let's get a one that's really easy to hear. I'm going to use a harmonic one, like a distortion or something like that. So harmonic stuff, we're going to use air distortion here. And I'm just using this one because it's very, very easy to hear what it's doing to this, the track. Turn the drive down. Now let's listen to this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2,
so you can hear
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
You can hear everything I move is changing the sound of my voice here. Okay, the audio, the waveform is not being affected though. It's not actually changing anything that we can see on the screen. The audio is literally just going through this plugin and it's being changed, okay? Another plugin that sounds pretty good, not sounds good, but we can hear what it's doing is over here in Modulation, the Vintage Filter. Now, I have a lot of plugins here. I'm showing you ones that come with Pro Tools right now. These are ones that you actually get with Pro Tools. So here's my Vintage Filter. And if I zoom in on this, again, it's not going to show you anything different on here. It's just changing the sound.
1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
There we go.
9, 10, 11, 12.
You can hear it's actually distorting it a little bit.
4, 5, 6.
If I turn this fat knob up.
9, 10, 11.
And this is adjusting my high frequencies here.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
The resonance puts a peak at the frequency of the hertz cutoff here. But we're going to talk about this in detail on another lesson.
11, 12.
Okay. So right now, what I want to focus on is not the effect, but the actually like how it works with the audio. Okay. So let's choose one more effect. Now, how do I change my effect? Whoops. I change my effect by, if I already have an effect in the slot here, I change my effect by clicking on this little dot right here. I click on it and I just choose a different plugin. So we're going to go in here and we're going to go to, let's see here. Let's go down here to sci-fi. Sci-fi is a cool one as well. So in here, I'm going to go to sci-fi. Once I've got my plugin open here, I can choose different presets in here. If you're not sure what the plugin does and you just want to hear what it does, you can go here to the presets section and click on here and go through different ones. So
8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3, 4.
So these are called bad radio. It sounds kind of like it's going through a bad radio.
11, 12, 1, 2,
Okay.
3, 4.
And then we can also combine these plugins here. And so let's say I want to have the sci-fi go first, but then I want to put a filter after the sci-fi to mess with those frequencies a little bit. I can go in here and I just click on the next one down and I go over here to my modulation filter here. And now we can have the filter.
1, 2, 3, 4.
But you can hear it's still got,
7,
too far.
8,
You can hear it's still got that sci-fi plug-in on it.
12, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Huh, yeah. Lewis says it sounds like something out of a busted radio in Fallout. Absolutely. And this is what plugins do. There are so many cool plugins out there, and I'll show you some of my plugins that I've got that you have to pay for. But this is basically how it works. So we can put these plugins on here and the order matters. So for example, if I move the sci-fi one after the vintage filter, and you can do that by just clicking and dragging and moving it around, and you can change the order. So if I put the filter first,
1, 2,
hear how you can still hear those high frequencies from the sci-fi plugin now.
11, 12,
But
2,
that vintage filter is affecting the voice before it gets to the sci-fi. But if I put the sci-fi plugin first, now the vintage filter is affecting all the high frequencies of the sci-fi plugin as well.
1, 2, 3, 4.
So we're not hearing those high frequencies any longer.
9, 10, 11, 12, 1.
It makes a really big difference here.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Okay. So the order matters. This is really, really important. The order matters. All right. So let's just go over here and we're going to talk about that a little bit more detail here in a second. But the plugins, basically there's two types of plugins in Pro Tools. There's the Audio Suite plugins and there's the Aax plugins. The Aax plugins are the same as RTAS plugins, what they used to be. You'll still maybe hear some people talk about RTAS plugins, although it's becoming less and less and less. But the history went through like this. First, there was Audio Suite plugins. Audio Suite plugins are not real-time plugins. We put them on the clip directly and you hit go and it changes the clip, not like what we're doing right now. That was in the very, very beginning. And then Pro Tools made RTAS plugins. RTAS stands for Real-Time Audio Suite. It meant that you could play the audio and it would actually allow you to hear the plugin making a change in real time. Well, the problem was that it was only real time. So when at the end of everything, when it was time to bounce stuff out and time to listen to it and bounce it out as a stereo 2-track recording, remember we talked about that last week, when it was time to do that, you could only do it in real time, which meant that you were listening to your project back in real time, which is good and bad. It's good because it kind of forces you to pay attention to it one last time, but it's bad because it's super slow. So Logic, Ableton Live, these other DAWs, they had it so you could hit play and you could hit bounce and it would bounce it out and it would take like 5 seconds to bounce out a full song and you could go and listen to it in your car or something like that. Well, Pro Tools, finally they made Aax, which basically is what they've got now, and that was non-real-time or real-time both. So it could be real-time, it could be non-real-time. It's actually a modern version of the AAX, of the RTAS standard. So we don't need to really worry about RTAS anymore. It's just interesting from a historical standpoint. But now what you've got is AAX, which somebody, I think T, it was you who asked me about it yesterday. So AAX is just the Pro Tools standard. So Audio Suite still exists and AAX exists. But you're not going to really see where it says AAX inside of Pro Tools itself. AAX is when you're actually buying plugins or loading them up. You have to say, okay, cool, it's AAX plugin, it'll work in Pro Tools. If it's VST or audio units, it will not work in Pro Tools. So that's right over here. AAX stands for Avid Audio Extension. These work offline and in real time. AAX DSP plugins work in Pro Tools Ultimate, where you can actually use DSP systems to give you more power. The native ones work on the computers themselves, which is totally fine these days. Now, remember that remember we talked a lot in the past about mono versus stereo. And so, like, for example, if we look here, this one here, my voice, my Tony counting voice, is mono, and this drum loop here is stereo. Well, these actually take in Pro Tools actually separates out the difference between those, and it makes you have to think about it. So if I'm using mono track, if I click on one of my my plugins here, it just says plugin and just goes down like this. If I go over here to my stereo track and I click on it, it says multi-channel and multi-mono. Okay, multi-channel, multi-mono. Multi-channel is a true stereo. Multi-mono is two mono plugins inserted on the track. The result is really the same. They end up sounding about the same. If there's any difference, it's too small for most people to tell. So for most cases, you should use multi-channel. Multi-channel allows you to quickly you make a change and it changes the left and the right side at the same time. With multi-mono, you can actually separate the left and the right. So if you want to do something different on your left side from your right side, then use multi-mono. It's a good one to use. I don't really want to go into too much more detail about it because it's really, that's it. If you want to know more, if you want to try to figure it out, really I suggest you use them and also read the notes and watch this video again, because just talking about it, it's a little bit boring for me to do that, but it's all right here in the notes. So mono here, it's one mono goes into mono and it comes out mono. So for example, if we listen to this, let's go ahead and put I'm going to go ahead and bypass these for a second. I can bypass them by holding Command and clicking the plugin. And I'm going to go in here, I'm going to put in here a delay, and let's just use regular delay. Where is it? Mod delay 3 is the one that comes with Pro Tools. So here it is. So if I have this in here, let's just adjust some of these things.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Right? Yeah, bypass disables the plugins. Yeah, the bypass is right here. So if I don't want to hear it,
2,
there we go.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Where's my dry wet? There's my dry wet. Let's turn this on like that. There we go.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. So this is mono. We hear it right in the middle. If I want to move it to the left or the right, okay.
1, 2, 3.
I can move it to the left and the right. If you're listening on headphones, you're hearing it move to left and right now. Okay. But when it moves to the left, it's on the left. When it moves to the right, it's on the right. It's not on both sides. This is what we call mono. This is mono. The track is mono. But remember, our master fader here is stereo. So we're hearing it go out to two channels here. And then AJ says it sounds like an effect they put on old school reggae songs. Well, that's because that is the effect they use for old school reggae songs. Old school reggae songs use a delay unit for a lot of that kind of that dub sound is a delay unit like this. So that's what we're doing here. Now, let's do this where I actually make it be mono and change it to stereo here. So what I can do is I can go over here, I go to my plugin, I'm going to go to the same exact plugin. Yeah, it's a cool sound. I agree, AJ. I love that sound. So I can go to the same exact plugin down here, but if we look, it says mono to stereo. Check this out. So what this plugin is going to do is it's actually going to change my sound from a mono sound into a stereo sound. So listen to this one. I'm going to change my dry wet to my mix to about 50%. And let's go ahead and turn on the sync. I'm going to make this side is going to be eighth notes, and this side over here is going to be dotted eighth notes. So let's do dotted 16th notes. So here we go. Let's listen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1, 2, 3.
So you can hear now the main voice is in the middle, but the delay is going out to the sides.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 1.
Okay. So we can hear that, and that's true stereo. And we can even see once I put this plugin on the track, it changed my track into true stereo right here. This track became stereo. So let's listen to these one more time. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to open up both of my plugins so we can see them here. The way you open multiple plugins in Pro Tools, the way you open a plugin in Pro Tools is you click on it here like this. The way we open up multiple plugins at the same time so we can see them is I hold Shift and I click it, and now I can see both my plugins here on the screen. You can see they're just separate windows that I can move around my whole screen. There we go. So this one up top is actually a mono plugin. This one down here is a stereo plugin. It's changing the mono signal into two separate channels here, stereo. So let me go ahead and bypass the stereo one, and let's listen to the mono one. I'm going to go ahead and make this dotted eighth notes.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Okay, so there's that one. Let's listen to this stereo one down here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
And right now, this is a big, it's not subtle. It's like a big change. But I could make it subtle by making both of these eighth notes down here in the bottom. You can see it actually gives me little notation here. I can make both of these eighth notes. I'm going to move this one over like just a little bit here. Now let's listen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
If you have headphones on right now, that just made the sound jump out to the sides. It sounds very similar to this one up here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, let's listen to this one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay, they sound very similar, but this one, the delay is way out to the sides. The reason why the delay is way out to the sides is because of the Haas effect. Y'all learned about this in Mod 1, H-A-A-S, Haas effect. And what that does is it means that if one hits your ear before the other, it's going to sound like it's coming from that direction. It's going to sound super, super wide. Yeah, you heard the difference spatially. So what I did was I changed the groove here to slow the right side down a little bit. So now it sounds like everything is like spread way out, okay? T says, that happened to me yesterday, and I was like, what's going on? But I eventually figured out. That's when I said to myself, too many plugins that I am not understanding how they work, so I decided to bring the project home and feel free to go down that rabbit hole. So exactly. So what you just have to remember is that mono versus stereo is a thing, and it's actually really easy to see. These are the same exact plugin, just one is mono and one is stereo. Different plugins look different though. Some plugins do not look any different when you make them mono versus stereo. Let's get another delay unit here. This is one of my favorite delays. It's from Waves. It's called the H delay, and I'm going to grab two different versions of this. Let's go ahead and just go in here and go H delay. Right there, here's the mono version, and then the stereo version. Right here, boom. So I've got them right next to each other, and they look exactly the same, okay? They look exactly the same. So there's not really an easy way to tell which one is mono versus stereo down here. Yeah, I literally can't even see a difference on these. So let's go ahead and bypass the stereo one for now. And let's grab, let's just make this, I'm going to make this eighth notes. There we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Okay, so they're both they're both, you know, this one's going here. Let's do it one more time.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1.
Okay. You can hear how it's a little bit of a different sound right here than the other delay that I just had going. Not all delays are made equal. Even, I mean, this one looks different. It's definitely a different sound. Let's click the lo-fi button here. It'll lo-fi it up a little bit. I'll click on both of them. Now, let's listen to it one more time.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Okay, cool. You can hear the lo-fi button made things a little bit more kind of grainy sounding, a little bit more lo-fi. That's hard to hear, but it does make a difference. Now let's listen to the stereo version. The stereo version, what I'm going to do is I'm going to put on my ping pong here. And so it's going to be basically the same thing. It's just going to be, now it's going to be ping ponged out. Let me set these settings to basically the same, so we get the same sound. Okay, now let's listen to this.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
What it's doing is it's ping-ponging back and forth with these. Okay, let's go ahead and turn on the phase here. Oops. Turn on that phase. There we go. Let's do it now.
1, 2.
Actually, turn off the ping pong and turn on the phase. There we go.
1, 2.
No, it's not going to work. Okay. So the easiest way for this one here to make it sound like stereo is just to put it on, push this ping pong button here. I thought it would phase one ear and not the other, so it would kind of get this weird sound, but I never pushed that phase button on this one. Let's take another delay and see what we can do with it. This one here is, I use the H delay really only for mono delays. I don't use it for stereo delays. Sometimes I'll use it for the ping pong delay, but not always. Let's grab another delay one more time, and we're just kind of looking at delays here. There's a couple of really cool ones in here that I have. We'll listen to two more delays. We could sit here and listen to delays all day long, actually, because they're really, really cool. One of my favorite delays that I've been messing around with recently is this Timeless here. Timeless 3 is really cool from Fab Filter. And let's listen to this in mono and in stereo. So I'm going to grab Timeless again, and the mono to stereo, and we'll have both of them on the screen here so we can see both of them. This one's the mono version, this one's the stereo version. How can I tell? I'm telling because I'm looking at my plugin right here. This one is on the insert position D, and this one is on insert position C. So what that means is that this one is before this one. Okay, this is D and C, or C and D rather. So A, B, C, D. So far, these are still muted. We haven't listened to these yet. We're going to listen to this in just a second. But let's go ahead and do the mono one first. Now, this plugin here, if you have this plugin or if you get this plugin, you really need to check out the presets, okay? So we're just going to start. Let's go with the default setting.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Just the default setting is really cool. The default setting is fine. It sounds pretty cool, but it's not. Here, let's move these down. It's not. It's not really. If I was just gonna do this, I would just use the H delay because I prefer the sound of that for this kind of stuff. Although this sounds great. But just a regular basic delay like that, I'm going to use the H delay. Let's get in here some weird stuff.
1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
Let's go through some of these sounds.
11, 12.
Right? Now we're getting to some weird stuff. It's not like Timeless as a mono delay doesn't sound as great as it does in stereo. So let's listen to this in stereo. I'm going to bypass this. I'm going to unbypass you. Here we go. Now let's listen to this again, the stereo versions of these.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Hear how much cooler it sounds in stereo? You can hear the spatialness of it. You can hear how deep it gets. And Lewis says it just keeps going on and on. Yeah, it does. Absolutely. Some of these just keep going. Let's listen to this one.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
It's this really
10,
cool kind of
11,
chorus effect.
12.
It doesn't sound like anything in mono, but in stereo it sounds really cool.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
And now it's changing my pitches, it's moving things around. Much cooler.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Super weird. Like, I don't know why you would use this one, but it's a cool sound, I guess.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
Okay.
9.
See how it's like all over the panning spectrum, right? So this is what, when you get to different types of plugins, they start doing different things. And these are all still delays, but they're just being used in different ways. And they're just different types of delays. And then one more, let's see here. Let's go down to Ultra Tap. Ultra Tap's an interesting one here. So here's Ultra Tap. And then down here. This is from Eventide, and this is like it's a cool delay unit. Where are we? Yeah. I don't use this one as much as I should. I need to get into using this one more. It's a really cool one. So I've got my my mono one up top and the stereo one down the bottom. So let's just go through some of these presets.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Super cool, right?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right? So you can, I mean, these are super weird and cool, and you can hear, wait, I've heard that sound in like a movie or something, and the answer is yeah, you've totally heard these sounds, because this is how they get sound effects with stuff. So yeah. And going through and sampling these sounds, like using these and then sampling these sounds, really makes a big difference to your songs and sound design, stuff like that. So it's not just for music, it's all for all sorts of stuff. Let's listen to this in stereo now. I'm going to bypass the mono one, get the stereo one up.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Right? That's kind of boring, but let's get to this one here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sounds so much different in mono versus stereo. Let's go back to this one over here, and I'm going to mute this one, and I'm going to unbypass this one. So let's listen to it in mono.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Right? Sounds pretty cool like that, but then it sounds very different like this in stereo.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, like that. I actually prefer it in mono.
1, 2, 3.
It sounds like a weird special effect in mono, whereas in stereo, it just sounds like it's bouncing back and forth in my headphones, which I don't love that sound. Let's keep going with this.
1, 2, 3, 4.
The 30 seconds for me sound really cool in stereo more than they sound in mono. And this is just a preference thing, but let's listen to it in mono.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Like that sounds pretty cool, but let's listen to it in stereo.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Yep, neat. Let's listen to the bouncing ball.
1, 2, 2.
Cool.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Right? This sounds super cool, but not to put on something that's repeating for a long time. This would be great for sampling stuff. So let's listen to it one more time. So if I just want to make some weird effect on this one sound.
1.
Like that.
1.
Right? That's pretty cool sounding. Let's listen to
1,
this.
2, 3.
Right? It's really cool for just grabbing that one section there. But we don't want to really, I wouldn't want to use it like on a drum track or something like that.
1, 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 6, 7, 8.
All right, that's super interesting sounding. Let's go ahead and put this mix all the way up here and listen to it without the dry signal. right? It's like a super, it sounds like something from the Matrix, right? It's really cool sound. So basically my point with all this stuff is just kind of showing you, hopefully you've been watching as I do this and showing you how we can like put these effects on the tracks, the mono versus stereo versions of these effects, and then also changing some presets and going through presets. I didn't use the preset up here for some of these because these ones that are made by different companies, they actually use a different way to open up their presets. But if you've been watching, you can see, oh, okay, cool, that's what you do. Now, let's just unmute some of these over here. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of this stereo one. Let's keep everything in mono. And I'm going to unmute this sci-fi and filter, and let's listen to these all together.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
I'm going to move the order of these around. Okay, there we go. Boom. Cool. Okay, you can hear how this sounds now. It's interesting. To me, that sounds like Pigs in Space. Pigs in Space, if anybody knows Pigs in Space. And you could change here. This is basically your feedback here, how many taps it goes. Oh, wait, no, not that. The taper. You can see I don't actually use this one that much because it's... I'm not sure how to do, well, the length. I thought the length would do it, but I guess not. There's lots of interesting changes to these, which I think is interesting, like how you can, That's cool. All right. Anyway, so you can go. I mean, you know, if you buy a different delay, different stuff, and grab them, and they run sales on these all the time. So my advice is get on the mailing lists. That's how I get these Eventide ones, because they run sales on these things all the time. Most of these cost like $100 or $150, but they always come to a point when they're like, it's only $20 or $30 or $40 or whatever, and I'll grab a bunch of them, and then I'll try them out and see how I like them. Stuff like that is kind of how I get how I've gotten so many of these plugins over the years. So this is the order of things. So it's going to the vintage filter, into our sci-fi, and then our ultra tap right here. So if I want to move these around, let's go ahead and move these around here. Let me just show you something that's really important. Going back to this whole stereo versus mono thing. Stereo tracks have multi-channel plugins and multi-mono plugins. And multi-channel plugins are true stereo. There's one set of controls for everything. Multi-mono are left and right separated, and then we can link them and unlink that. Well, so here's the thing though, is that with Pro Tools and plugin channels, stereo is what you're going to use most of the time on stereo tracks. Multi-mono you're going to use sometimes, and multi-channel sometimes only. But basically, if I have a mono plugin here, like this, let's go for this vintage filter, and I drag it onto this drum loop here, and I open it up, it works fine. But if I go back, it looks like they may have actually, hold on, let's see. Maybe they changed this, which would be great if they changed it. Here, let's go down to Crystallizer is a fun one. So I put Crystallizer on here. Now let's move it back over to here. Oh, okay. So they changed it actually, so never mind. There's a portion of stuff that I was going to talk about that I don't need to talk about now because that's awesome. It used to be that you could not drag from a stereo channel onto a mono channel. It didn't really work in Pro Tools. Joel, what's up, Joel? Wait, weren't you already here? You were already here. Why'd you put your name in again? Yeah, now it looks like they've kind of fixed that weirdness. So, okay, cool. So we don't have to worry about that anymore. Great. Okay, that's a lot of stuff I don't need to talk about. Yay. Cool. All right. Let's see. Okay, so the multi-channel versus multi-mono. Let's just take a look at that. Oh, cool. Okay. Multi-channel versus multi-mono. In here, if I go to multi-channel, basically I don't have any control over my left and my right. So if I go in here to multi-channel, I go here to my EQ. We've got this EQ, and everything is just controlled by these things on here. So let's listen to our drums here for a second. Boom, boom, boom. I can put my EQ on here. Oh, Joel. Okay, no, I think you put your name in because that's how I know you're here. So, but thanks for double checking. So we got this here, and I can move this around, and you can hear how this EQ does stuff. It's great. But if I change the EQ to a multi-mono, or I put a multi-mono on here, let's just change it to multi-mono. I can change the EQ by going here and clicking right here in this part here. Multi-mono, EQ, EQ 7 band, boom. Now, it looks the same, but we can see there's a little bit of a difference up here. So if I listen to this, it sounds the same as it did just a second ago. But what I can do is I can actually unlink my left and my right sides here and change the right side to be different from the left side. So if I go over here, now the right side, and you can hear now the sound leads over to the right. Yeah. Yeah, wow. Yeah, definitely. Wow. Yeah. And I can go back and I can make some changes to the right side. And if you're on headphones right now, it's super cool. Yeah, it's neat. So you can do some really interesting things with your loops and stuff like that. This is by messing with the left and the right sides. Now, I just want to point out that in Ableton Live and Logic, a lot of Pro Tools actually have this capability built into them. Some of the a lot of the plugins have them built into them, so you can actually do it in those programs if the plugin allows you to treat the left and the right side separately. In Pro Tools, same thing, but you can also do it. You can also separate things out into multi-mono. Okay, so Fab Filter. Let's take a look at Fab Filter here. I'm going to go ahead and disable this one. Let's put Fab Filter on here. And I think, let's see how Pro Tools does it now, because I know I can see Pro Tools is doing different stuff with this. So I've got Pro Q3, which is amazing. Let's see if we can actually do stuff with this in, separate this out. And yeah, so here's this. Yeah, so we can do it here. So we can go to the left side here, and then I can make another one and make this one be the right side. There we go. So we can do it in Fab Filter directly in the Pro plugin, and we do not need to use multi-channel plugins. So it looks like with Pro Tools, it looks like in the past like year or 2 years or something like last like a few months or whatever, they've kind of changed this around a little bit. I'm not sure exactly when they did this because I don't always like. I feel like the last time I taught this before this latest update, it wasn't like this, but I could be wrong about it. So what's cool about Fab Filter though, check this out. This is really interesting. Is that I think, let's see. Yeah. We also have what we call mid-side right here. So we got mid-side. So I can make this one be the side. And this one can be the mid. And it's actually going to separate out my middle part from my side part. And so this here, you can push this up. Let me change this to a shelf. So now, can you hear that? I don't know if y'all can hear how well y'all can hear that. I can hear it really well in my headphones for sure. But you can hear that the middle part is in the middle. The middle part's like really like the same. And the high frequencies are pushed out to the side. Let me go ahead and pull this down. Yeah, oh, that's cool. Let's change this to a bell. Yeah, it's doing some really weird stuff with the frequencies. That's kind of an interesting effect. And let's take let's put another one in down here and set this one for the mid only and boost up that bass. Yeah. And this is neat because it's only in the mid part here. If we push out to the sides, listen to this. It's not, because there's not as much low energy in the sides, because whoever processed this put that mid, the bass right in the middle, which is what you should be doing. There's not any kind of mid stuff happening on the outsides over here. Why is this? Oh, interesting. Huh. Oh. Here, let me just reset these all to... Okay, these are all going to my output. That's fun. I didn't notice that. Okay. So, yeah. So if I go back to my mid here, we're going to hear what they actually did with the original loop. Neat. Yeah, they got this low frequencies going on down here. I'm not even sure if y'all can like hear these well or not. Yeah, it's a cool sound. It's a neat sound. So yeah, so basically the main thing to keep in mind, it looks like nowadays about mid-side. If you're using Pro Tools plugins, not mid-side. Stereo versus multi-mono. If you're using Pro Tools plugins, you still have to think about stereo versus multi-mono. But if you're using other plugins, maybe you don't have to worry about it so much. Just use multi-channel. Now, one other thing though is that some plugins are only multi-mono. So for example, Trim, if I go over to Other, this Trim plugin right here does not exist in the multi-channel section, or at least it didn't used to. Let's see what happens. Yeah, it's not here. So you have to be careful about this. There are a few plugins that do not exist in the multi-channel section. They're only multi-mono. Those plugins are written down in here somewhere. Boop, 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 boop. Or maybe it's just the Trim one that I use. Yeah, Trim is the main one. Some reverbs will be, they're multi-channel only. They don't have multi-mono support, but not much. And really, you don't want a reverb to be mono anyway. You want your reverbs to be stereo, like 99% of the time. So we're not going to worry about that too much. All right. Over here is what this is showing here in the notes is what it looks like up top, this top section up here. This top section. So let's just go through this here real quick and take a look at what our plugin controls are doing. We're going to talk about this more when we talk about automation and stuff like that. But the plugin controls, you got the track up here section, which is the track selector, which selects which track you're actually looking at, which slot you're looking at, and then the plugin you're looking at in here. This is really what this is for when you're using a control surface to control Pro Tools. So it's not really something that we are going to be using a lot in day-to-day use, but if you do want to check out a different section, like let's say I want to check out A, B, or C, instead of just clicking on it, which is what I've always done in the past, you can actually do it right here from the plugin itself. But again, you're going to use this a lot more when you are using the S6. You're going to use it a lot more. The plugin selector part I do use quite often because sometimes it's just easier just to go in here and change the plugin, and this just changes literally what plugin you're using. Then we have our presets. The presets are pretty easy, but keep in mind these are only for Pro Tools plugins. So for example, if I'm using my vintage filter, I can use the preset right here, and I can just flip through my vintage. Oops, I can flip through my vintage filter and get different sounds. So where are we here? Let's go back to this one here.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7,
So
8. 5, 6.
So I can get different sounds in here, and same thing with the sci-fi. Oops. Okay, so we have that there. These are different sounds in here. Okay, why is it doing that? Oh, it's because of this thing here. So you can hear, it's really important. Sorry, I was like a little bit confused why it was doing the wah 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 thing. So it's really important to understand that your different presets, the different effects that you use are going to change things around. So make sure you just understand that, because I was like, why is it doing that? It was doing that because of this one over here. So your different presets, you get to them in here by clicking in this preset section. But if you're using a plugin from a different company, you're probably going to have a different way to load those presets. And it's usually pretty obvious. There's usually some arrows next to it, and it says load and save and stuff like that. So really depends on the plugin that you are using there for that kind of stuff there. And then finally over here, not finally, but the other part here is this automation section. We're going to be talking about automation. We're going to get into that more next week, I know, or not next week, in a couple weeks. It was on the quiz, but I'm going to push it back a little bit just because automation, I want to be able to spend some time to it. R2D2, yeah, absolutely. But this automation here allows you to automate certain parameters. A parameter is any knob or fader on the plugin. Then we can also hit the safe button here. The safe button, basically, if you are using automation, it locks that automation so it can't be adjusted later. Finally, we have the bypass button here.
2, 3, 4, 5,
So we can hear
6,
this.
7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
So this is totally clean right here because everything's bypassed. Now, one thing to keep in mind with this is another way to bypass it is if you hold down the command key on a Mac, control key on a Windows, hold down the command key and click the name of the plugin, it's going to, it's going to bypass it for you. So there you go there. All right, cool. All right, so let's go ahead and pause there. I do want to come back and talk about the routing and sends real quick here. There's a few things we didn't really get into, but we will come back and talk about these at a different time. The reason why I'm kind of pausing here is because I want to talk about how to set up sends and returns and stuff in Pro Tools. Let's take a break though. Let's be back at 12:05. Okay, so we're gonna come back, take 10 minutes, get a snack, whatever. 12:05, and we're gonna spend like a half hour or so talking about routing and stuff like that, because people were already asking me questions about it yesterday. It's a cool lesson, right? Yeah, it's a cool one. Listening to these different plugins and stuff like that.